What's up guys, Intellitech Studios here, and I've been using this Dyson V8 Absolute as my main cordless vacuum. I've got a lovely little setup right here, and I've been using it as my main cordless vacuum ever since I unboxed it, at this point probably a little over a month ago. And yeah, here are my overall thoughts and my in-depth review after using this as my primary stick vac. So the first thing I'll talk about is the fact that, well, you can see how it's nicely docked and hung up on the wall. So that's the first thing that I'll talk about, is the docking system. So the way this works is installation is pretty easy. I'll show you how to remove the vacuum and then I'll talk about the actual dock itself. So to remove the vacuum, you just grab it, you lift it up a little bit so it's above this little lip, and then you just simply pull it out and that automatically unplugs it and undocks it. So right here we can see you install it with 2 screws, and it does come with optional anchors as well. I just realized this screw is very loose, but my wall is also very bad quality, so in my case it's mainly this top screw that's holding it in. So yeah, okay, so it didn't do the best job at installing this, but you mainly want to make sure that when you install this into your wall that you actually drill it into a stud. At least that's my understanding of it. I don't know a lot about walls, but generally you just want to make sure that it's attached to something stable, so that way this dock doesn't wiggle. And when you buy this, it comes with the 2 screws that you need to go into the dock, and it also comes with 2 drywall anchors as well. So in case you are installing this in just straight drywall without any studs, you can still do that. Now, of course, when you set it up, you want to make sure that it's level. I mean, unless you don't care, but you definitely want to make sure it's level when you're putting the screws in. And beyond that, the installation is very simple. And that's pretty much that. You've got 2 little attachment pegs right here that you can put 2 attachments of your choice. Now, the way that I usually do it is I actually store the wand on this peg, and then I store the crevice tool on this peg with this extra bend piece. This is the up top adapter. Now, at first I thought this was the adapter to get underneath furniture, but I don't have one of those yet. But I do want to get one of those because that's a really good feature. But since I got the Absolute package, mine came with, of course, these 3 pieces. So the wand, this up top adapter, the crevice tool, the multi-purpose tool that is both a upholstery tool and a dusting brush. And then it also came with the hair screw tool, which this is a really nice attachment. And if you get the non-absolute version, it comes with the standard version of the turbo head. This is the one for my V11, so I'm just showing that. But of course that does work. It also came with the mattress tool, which this is a pretty decent attachment. Although having the side bleed valves isn't necessarily make all that sense on a cordless where there isn't as much power to begin with, at least on the minimum mode, which we'll talk about that in a sec. And every version of the V8 Absolute comes with the motor bar cleaner head. This has the anti-tangle hair removal vanes. And if you get the Absolute package, it comes with the soft roller as well. And of course it comes with the power plug to plug it into the wall. Now it also comes with a stiff bristle brush, but I seem to have misplaced that. So that is another attachment you get with the Absolute variant. So, and then of course you get the machine itself. So pretty self-explanatory as far as the attachment package goes. So you got a lot of good stuff, and if you get the base model package that isn't the Absolute, you of course get less pieces. If you get the base model that isn't the Absolute, you only get the wand, the dock, the charger, the motor bar cleaner head, the crevice tool, and the multi-purpose tool. So that is that, and I will link this machine in the description in case you are interested. Of course, I recommend getting the Absolute package, at least when it's on sale, because the soft roller does a great job on bare floors, the motor bar does great on carpets, so we'll talk about both of those in a sec. And of course, whenever you are done vacuuming and you want to put it back in the dock to charge, you simply line it up right there, make sure that the actual power port lines up, and then clamp it down. And then it will charge, at least it'll charge whenever the brick is actually plugged in. Now, of course, you do have to feed the power socket through this dock when you set it up, but that's actually fairly simple to do. It just pushes in place and you route the cable through the back of the dock. So it's very self-explanatory, and you can see right now it's charging. Now, a lot of people have asked whether or not it is harmful for the life of the lithium battery in order to leave it on the dock all the time. And Dyson recommends just leave it on the dock all the time. Whenever you're done, just put it back on the dock. And according to Dyson, the power management on the battery is efficient enough that it actually will shut off charging when it's fully charged, so you don't have to worry about it. Now, generally speaking, most batteries, that's not the appropriate way to maintain the lifespan of batteries. You generally want to keep the battery life between 20 and 80% for most lithium batteries, and that perhaps could be the cause as for why some customers have reported premature failure with these batteries. But for what it's worth, I have owned multiple Dyson cordless machines over the years, and I've been charging it the way that Dyson recommends, just putting it back on the dock and letting it charge every time you're done using it, no matter how short or how long the cleaning session was. And it's been fine. I haven't had any issues with reduction in battery life or the battery prematurely failing. So, based on my experience, I don't think there should be any problems with this battery long term, but we will see. Of course, it will eventually wear out, and that does kind of bring one of my complaints about this, considering they refreshed the V8 along with many other lines of their cordlesses. Now, on the V11 and the V15 and all that, they've actually upgraded the battery to a quick release battery that simply pops out with a button. This, unfortunately, despite this being an updated version of the V8, still has the battery held in with a screw. So, well, 3 screws actually. There's 2 screws right below here, and then 1 screw right here. So, swapping batteries is a little bit more complicated than it is on the more high-end Dyson cordlesses in their current lineup. So that's a little unfortunate. I was actually expecting this to have the click out battery, but unfortunately they did not decide to incorporate that on the V8. So no matter which version of the V8 you have, you will have a screw-in battery, which it's not like you replace the battery all that often, but it is nice to have the option to have 2 separate batteries, so you can keep one on the machine and one on the charger, because I know a lot of people like to do that, and it makes the eventual replacement of the battery much easier, especially because these screws that hold in this battery are not the best quality. So if you take them out and put them in, and take them out and put them in, they can strip really easily. For whatever reason, Dyson uses really poor quality screws on a lot of their products, and it's not good because, of course, if you strip out any one of these screws, then your battery's stuck and you have to send it in to get the battery extracted. So that's not exactly a great feature. Hi, Rika. But hi, hello. Yeah, I know. I know. Okay, bye. So anyways, that's a little bit of an annoyance, but for what it's worth, I have zero reason to believe that I'll need to replace this battery for a very long time because I have been getting great battery life out of this. To be honest, I haven't measured the battery life because I haven't really needed to. I've never ran out of battery, but I also don't use it on max mode. If you use it on max mode, you only get a few minutes of battery life, but if you use it on the normal mode, which is the switch right here, you'll get, I don't know, probably, I believe the official tally is 30 minutes, but don't quote me on that. If that's incorrect, I'll update the information in the description on how long Dyson says this battery is supposed to last in the standard mode. But in max mode, it's under 10 minutes, and I don't recommend using it in max mode unless you specifically need to. So for example, if I'm sucking up larger debris and it happens to struggle with it, which it only ever happens if I'm picking up like dog food or something with the wand, then it'll struggle a little bit, and I'll just slide it over to max mode, suck up what I need to suck up, and then put it back on the minimum mode. For most of the time when you're picking up normal debris like dust and pet hair and stuff like that, even cat litter off of bare floors, the standard mode works just fine. And of course for tools and just standard above floor cleaning, the standard mode or minimum mode, whatever you want to call it, is the mode to use most of the time. You don't want to use it in max mode all the time because not only will the battery not last as long, but of course you will end up decreasing the lifespan of your battery. Now, some people may argue that, well, Dyson shouldn't have put that in there if that's the case, but that's just generally how it is. The way that you take care of batteries is you don't drain them as quickly, and max mode does drain the battery a bit quicker. So I recommend only using max mode when you specifically need it for intense tasks. Otherwise, just use it on the standard mode. So this is the standard mode with the black dot, and over here where it says max, that's of course the max mode. So leave it on the standard mode most of the time. You may have noticed that most of the time I tend to leave my V8 in the handheld mode, and that's primarily because that's the mode that I use it in the most often, because this is a lot more lightweight of a package than the V11 is, which I've also reviewed in the past, and this just overall is much easier to maneuver. Now, it's not going to be as maneuverable as something like the Dyson Micro, or even something like the OmniGlide, but it definitely is a nice balance between having a decent amount of capacity and still being relatively easy to maneuver. So that's why I personally really like the V8. So with this combo tool, I'm going to slide the brush attachment down to the edge. We're going to do a little bit of dusting with this on the normal mode. And if you notice the way this trigger is designed, a lot of people have complained about this trigger and don't like the fact that you have to hold the trigger, but for me personally, I actually really like this feature. So it just means that you can simply hold it down, and whenever you're done, you just let go. Because I find that I'm holding the majority of the weight on the lower part of this handle, so I'm actually not putting a lot of strain on the trigger. It's something you kind of have to get used to, because at first I do find myself clamping down on the trigger, and that does kind of cause my hand to hurt a little bit after a while. But once you get used to it and you know that you don't have to hold it for very tightly, then it actually is pretty easy to use. So they call it a feather touch trigger, and that's definitely accurate. You barely have to put any pressure on this to get this to engage. So I'm definitely a big fan of the trigger. Although I have mentioned this before, there are other machines like the DreamTech T30 that I have reviewed in the past that have a little button where you can simply lock the trigger on and off, and I feel like that would have been a great feature to implement on this unit and would have been a nice happy medium for both the people that do and don't like the trigger. Now right here we've got both the Dyson V8 and the DreamTech T30. Now first off, you can see the T30 has one of the features that I mentioned that I wish the V8 had: swappable battery. You just press this button and the battery slides right out. I can't really do it with one hand, but it's super easy to change the battery. Also, what I mentioned about the trigger is true on the T30, and I really wish Dyson would implement this feature. So, you've got the trigger function. And, by the way, you also have the dust monitor without needing to get the much larger and much more expensive V15. So in this form factor, you've got the dust monitor, which is really cool. You press this little lock icon right here, and bam, continuous cleaning mode. Now I can press the trigger, and the vacuum stays on until I push the trigger again. That is perfect. That allows you to leave the trigger on for whenever you're using the hose or using something else and you want to have the machine set aside, but then you still have the option to push this button again and activate the trigger, which is literally perfect. It's the best of both worlds, because for me personally, when I'm using a cordless, I like the trigger, which means by default I prefer the Dyson when you compare this to something like the Honiture where it just stays on. But I would like to have the option to hold the trigger on for the cases that I'm using an external hose or just something else where I want to be able to hold the machine a bit differently to get into a tight space. That is a situation where the DreamTech wholeheartedly beats the V8. I really wish the V8 had the option not only for a swappable battery, but also for the ability to lock down the trigger with a simple switch, so that way both the people that like the trigger and the people that don't like the trigger can be equally happy, without having to do a really weird button on the top of the machine, which just doesn't make any sense at all. Alright, so now we'll be doing the official Intellitek Studios pickup test with the Dyson V8. We're going to be doing both tests on the standard suction mode, and we're going to be doing this test twice. First with the motor bar cleaner head, which is this, with the hair removal vanes, and then second we'll do the test with the fluffy cleaner head. So first we'll do it with the motor bar cleaner head. Okay, so we can see, so these results are fantastic. I mean, of course, this is just surface debris, but we can see the actual results are very similar to the Dyson uprights that I've tested. So excellent job on the carpeting. Okay job at the transition strip between the two. Again, a lot of vacuum struggle on this part. This is one area where there always could be some better improvements. And we see there is a little bit of debris that kind of piled up against the carpet. But once we go onto the actual floor, there are a few flakes left behind. So we can see that despite the main power head having the carbon fiber filaments, it's still not the best on bare floors, and it does leave some fine debris behind. So, excellent result on carpet, but the motor bar cleaner head does leave a little bit to be desired on bare floors. So while if you have primarily carpets, the motor bar would be great. If you have a mix of both carpeting and hard floors, I'd recommend the Absolute so you have the soft roller for bare floors. Speaking of which, let's test that now. So now we're going to do the same test again, but this time with the fluffy cleaner head. And again, we're going to do it on both carpets and bare floors. Even though the fluffy head is mainly designed for bare floors, we are going to try it on carpets just to see what the performance is like, because I've heard mixed results about how well it works on carpets, and I've tested it a little bit myself, but let's see how it does at surface debris on carpets. So, as we can see, and as we pretty much expect, the performance of the fluffy roller head on carpets is abysmal. It left a lot of debris behind, but to be fair, again, Dyson doesn't advertise the fluffy head for carpets at all. They only advertise it for bare floors. So let's see what it did on bare floors. So the fluffy head actually didn't leave that much on the transition between the carpet and the bare floor. There's hardly anything there. And once we go onto the actual bare floor, we can see I only have a couple flakes. So it did really good on the bare floor. Again, there's almost nothing left behind on the bare floor. So clearly the package is designed for you to use the motor bar cleaner head on carpets and the fluffy roller on bare floors. Now, a lot of people don't like to have to switch the heads, but that is what they are primarily designed for. So in my experience, you can use the motor bar on floors and the soft roller on carpets, but neither of those is going to be an optimal experience. Even though Dyson does advertise that the motor bar does work on bare floors, the carbon fiber filaments don't really do that great of a job at picking up fine debris off of bare floors, or large debris for that matter. So it would get you by in a pinch, but the fluffy roller is definitely the much better option, and a package of the V8 like the Absolute that comes with it would probably be the better choice for an all-around clean. Next, we'll talk about how to maintain the V8. So we're going to start off with how to maintain both the power heads, and we'll move on to the main machine itself afterwards. So starting with the motor bar, now this has the anti-hair removal and the hair removal vanes, but one thing you may notice is that it doesn't have the vanes where the actual suction intake is. So while the actual anti-tangle on the rest of the motor bar is great, you do notice there is a little bit of hair that gets tangled on the intake. So this can very easily just be pulled off. You actually have really good access to the entire brush bar from here, so that works really well. Hi, Rika. But if you want to clean it more thoroughly, you can grab a coin and twist this cap off just like that. You just give it a little turn and the entire brush roller pops out. Now, one thing I've noticed is that both with the motor bar on the cordless machines and on the upright Ball Animal 3, some debris like pieces of dog or cat food can get stuck in between these little teeth right here, so you want to make sure those are cleared out. You also want to make sure that you can see down through the suction intake. You want to make sure there's nothing clogged in there, so you can see, probably can't see my finger in there, so there's nothing stuck in there. And there's also this little piece of felt right here that's a bumper in case it goes up against a wall. You make sure that's clean. A lot of times scratches can form on the sides. And once you get this all cleaned off, which in my case is just one string, then you can just slide it right back in. Line this up right here, just like that. And you don't even really need the coin to put it back on. You just kind of twist it until it's as flush, and your motor bar is back together. Now with the fluffy head, it's a somewhat similar story. And the fluffy head's gotten a lot dirtier in my case, but there is a little point right here. You just take a coin and you just turn that to the left until that, there we go, until that clicks up and down. Now one thing I don't like about these Dysons is this is like a very soft plastic, so even if you just use a coin, let alone a screwdriver, this will get tore up pretty quickly, which I don't like, but you know, it doesn't keep it from working. And then once you get that, you just pop this out. There, you just lift that up, and that allows you to pop off the soft roller. And you can wipe this down with a damp cloth, get any of the dust off of it, because of course this does absorb dust. But this soft roller lasts a lot longer than the Shark equivalents in my experience, so you don't need to clean this nearly as often as you do on a Shark. And of course there's the motor. You can clean this window here and make sure this intake is clear. We can see through it, so there's nothing stuck in there. And again, it's a similar process when you're putting it back on. You just line it up, push it in until it's flush, clip it back down, and then you take this coin and twist it again until it's locked back in place, and there you go. Now both of your cleaner heads are back together. Of course, for all of your other attachments, it's as simple as simply looking through them and making sure that there is nothing stuck in there. Now, as far as maintaining the machine itself, you empty it by pulling this red trigger right up here, and then everything just pops out of it. Probably shouldn't have done that right there, but you get the idea. And you just shake it out, and once you press this back down, that'll shoot all of the dust out of the inner cyclone discharge chamber, and you can do that multiple times. Usually I'll do it multiple times. Just pull this up and slap it down until dust stops falling out of the internal chamber. That way less dust builds up in here and you're less likely to clog your cyclones. So there we go, and then you just close that up. Now you can remove the bin when you open this. If you want to remove the bin, there's a small little switch right here that you just simply push, and that allows you to pop the bin off. It's a little tricky, but sometimes it works. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. There we go. So that pops off in case you want to clean that. Now do not run any water through the cyclone, but if you have an air compressor, you can blow it out. But the bin you can wash as long as you don't get any water in the connectors here. So you just want to be careful of that. And once you want to put this back on, it's a little tricky to get it on, but you basically just line it up right here. Yeah, line it up like that, push it up until it clicks into place, slap this down, and then close it up. And there you go. Now there's two filters right here. Well, I guess before I show that, might as well go ahead and clean all this up using the upholstery tool. Oh. And one other thing that I will note is that you can use either of the full-size power heads just attached directly to the machine. You don't have to use the wand if you don't want to. I tell you, using this on stairs, fantastic. Carpeted stairs, this works super well. And yeah, so even though I have a Dyson upright with a relatively nice hose, and it is my favorite out of all the uprights as far as tool usage, a lot of times I don't see the reason to use it, at least not on stairs or upholstery, because this ends up being a lot more convenient, unless I'm already using the upright and I need to clean the stairs or upholstery. Although I do still prefer using the upright for the getting up into cracks and crevices, because holding the plastic wand is a lot easier than holding this entire thing in your hands. So there's a bit of a trade-off there. Now, of course, it has the quick release for all the attachments, so it pops off super easily. And now, finally, we'll talk about the hair screw tool, which I seem to have misplaced. Oh, it's right here. So one thing I don't like about either the turbo brush attachments on the Dysons is that this little ledge right here, debris gets shot up into here every time you go to use it. And that can be a little annoying because, of course, that gets everywhere, and it's a little hard to wipe it out. I usually end up just washing it. Even though you're not supposed to get water in this tool, I'll just hold it at just the right angle and just spray a little bit of water just to wipe off this ledge, and that tends to work just fine. So it still would be nice if this was designed in a way that debris didn't get stuck in here. Now, if you want to maintain this, there's this little base plate does swivel to maintain contact. There's a little red lever that you flick, and that allows you to pop off this entire cover. And then here is the brush roller. So the hair screw tool just has a single brush roll in a spiral, and that's easy enough to get that cleaned off. Although I usually never have to. It's more so in case something gets jammed in here. And then once this... Okay, it's a little tricky to get this back on, but you kind of can get it back on. It's a little... Well, okay, I know there's a way to do it. I'm just struggling a little bit. There we go. So it just slides in just like that. Then this little red switch locks this back into place. Just like that. So the idea with the hair screw tool is hair will essentially get forced down this spiral and then sucked up into this thing. Now if you're sucking up a lot of hair, it can get stuck right here, but other than that, it works really well. And as you can see, there's no hair tangling on it. There is some dust on it, but no hair. So it does work pretty well. Although you just do still need to clean the hair off this little piece of felt right here. But it works pretty well. Although, because of like how it kind of goes in this conical shape, using this is a little... It's weighted a little bit unevenly. Obviously, there's more weight on this side. So using it is a little bit more awkward than the previous generation of Turbo Brush, but it still does work. Ruby. 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 Okay, I was trying to get you on camera since you're clearly making noises. Ruby. Okay, whatever. So, of course, that works. Cooper? Okay.
He's camera shy.
Cooper's a little camera shy. I was asking him if he'd want to help me demo the hair screw tool, but apparently not. But, hey, we can still demo this. So there's plenty of hair and stuff on here. It's kind of hard to see. But, yeah, so we'll go ahead and use this. So yeah, it's not perfect. You can see there's a couple little bits of hair that it doesn't get on the first pass, but it definitely works well. I still feel like the last generation of the mini turbine head for this cordless form factor, specifically this one, I feel like this one works a little bit better because, number one, it doesn't require as many passes to get than this does. And also, because of its design, where it has all the motor and all the weight on one side, even if you hold it at just the right angle so it's weighted properly, which can be a little bit straining, it does still have, it has issues where it squeals a lot because you're putting uneven pressure on the brush bar, and that does cause it to squeal a little bit if I apply too much pressure to the sofa with that tool. Whereas this one doesn't have that problem. So even though this one, obviously, as you can tell, gets tangled, I would have much rather, instead of them, even though the hair screw tool is really interesting and innovative in some ways, I would rather they have just taken the hair removal vane approach and just added tabs to sweep off the brush on this turbo tool. Now, perhaps this was too small for them to be able to pull that off, and that's probably why they designed this instead. But even if they had just taken the tangle-free turbine tool that we saw on the uprights and just implemented that into a cordless form factor with a separate motor, I feel like that would have worked even better as well. So overall, I feel like this is the better tool than the hair screw tool, just by a little bit. But you could argue that the slightly more time it takes to clean with it could outweigh the fact that you don't have to spend any time cleaning the brush roll. So it's you could make an argument either way, but personally, I still prefer this older tool. But again, the hair screw tool is still a nice addition. So, overall, I would pretty easily recommend the Dyson V8 Absolute. Out of Dyson's entire lineup of cordless machines, this is the one that I would wholeheartedly recommend, especially if you can get it on sale. Now, if you're paying the full $400 or $500 for this machine, it's a little bit harder to justify because that is a lot of money, especially considering there are a couple little things that I would change on it. I would add the click-out battery. I would like to see a bit of a better turbo brush and that sort of thing. But overall, it is the best cordless stick vac that I can recommend for the vast majority of people. You don't need a lot of the improvements that are made to the V10 and the V15, in my opinion, and the lighter weight but still very acceptable performance is really good on a machine like this for if you're using it as a supplement to a full-size vacuum, which if you have a large house like I do, well, I don't have a large house, but if you have a house that isn't an apartment that has more than 1 or 2 bedrooms, then you're definitely going to want something in addition to a cordless machine like this, no matter what type of cordless it is. So for my usage, using this to supplement my full-size upright, this is close to perfect as it can realistically be, especially for the price that I got it for. I didn't get it for the Black Friday price, but I got it for the pre-Black Friday sale where it was $349 for the V8 Absolute. And for that price, I'm certainly very happy with it, and I have zero desire to return it or anything, so clearly I'm happy with it, despite the amount of money that I paid. And considering this is a lot easier to use than my previous V11, and it's a lot more feature-packed than my DreamTech T30 or my Honitor H8, this is, of course, my pick for the stick vac that I use all the time, hence why it's the one that's actually mounted to my wall and constantly plugged into my kitchen. So, again, the $400 to $500 is a little tricky to justify, but if you can especially cop it on sale, then that's when I would recommend this. Out of all the Dyson cordlesses, this is the one I would recommend, unless you are averse to the trigger, in which case the V12 Detect Slim may be a good option. But for me, I like the trigger. It just would be nice to have an option to turn it on and off for the people that like that feature. So Dyson, for the next iteration of the V8, I would love to see a click-out battery, and I would love to see a button lock that will allow me to turn the trigger on and off and allow it to hold itself if I want. Also, I forgot to mention the filters, believe it or not. So there's a pre-motor filter right here. I almost forgot that. And I have yet to need to wash it, and that just pops in right there. And there's a HEPA filter right here. Again, I have yet to need to wash it. So I believe Dyson recommends washing both these every month. I don't think that's necessary. I'd probably say wash the pre-motor filter roughly every 6 months. And this filter, they say it's washable, but I generally don't find these filters to be super washable. They are more washable than other pleated filters, but I'd probably just recommend changing that maybe every 3, maybe 4 years. It's hard to say for sure because I haven't had this for that long, but these filters last a long time, and you definitely don't need to clean them all that often, which does also add to the value proposition. These filters take a long time to get dirty, and that's always a nice feature of Dyson's. So, yeah, overall, I do recommend this, and this is the Dyson that I would recommend for the vast majority of people if you're wanting a cordless Dyson. I'd specifically recommend the Absolute package so you get the extra attachments, and there are a lot of other attachments that I would love to get for this, like the light pipe crevice tool and the down-low adapter, or the under furniture adapter, I forgot what it's called. Although, considering that under furniture adapter was included and was shown off in a lot of the promotional material for this thing, I would have liked it if that had actually come in the box, considering how much they advertised it. But, hey, can't be too picky. So anyways, I'm starting to repeat myself a little bit, but you do get the idea. I will link this in the description, and a link direct from Dyson, since a lot of the prices are generally the same no matter what store you go to. So I'll just link Dyson's direct direct listing to this. And yeah, it's definitely my cordless vacuum of choice for 2022. So anyways, this is Intellitech Studios signing out. I'll see you guys in the next video, and I hope you all have a good one. Peace. And also, if you have the V8 or similar Dyson cordless, or just any cordless vacuum in general, let me know what you have in the comments below. I'd love to hear about it and what you think about it. So, that's it. See ya.